The rain hit the ground like falling stones. Daniel Walker, quiet farmer on the edge of Sector 12, was checking his fence. He wore an old coat, soaked from the storm, and held a small flashlight. His land was quiet, too quiet. Then he saw it. Something strange, a shadow near his old barn. He stepped closer. The rain made it hard to see, but then he heard a soft cough. Not a human cough. He aimed the light. There, under the broken roof of the barn, crouched a creature. A woman, not human. Her skin was smooth and a faint shade of silver blue. Her long black hair was dripping wet, sticking to her face. She was holding something tight against her chest. Daniel's breath caught. It was a child the alien mother held. The small figure like a shield, wrapping her body around it to protect it from the cold. The child didn't move. Its eyes were closed, face pale, lips purple. Daniel raised his hands slowly, showing he had no weapons. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said calmly. "You're not safe out here. Let me help." The alien woman looked up. Her large green eyes glowed faintly, full of fear. Her lips trembled, but she said nothing. She only pulled the child tighter. Daniel stepped back. "I have a heater inside. Food, dry clothes. Please, your child is sick." Still, she didn't move. Then the child let out a weak moan. That did it. The mother stood up on shaking legs. She tried to walk, but almost fell. Daniel rushed forward, catching her before she hit the ground. She flinched, growled softly, but didn't push him away. Inside the house, Daniel placed the child on his couch. He turned on the heater and wrapped both of them in warm blankets. The woman sat still, watching everything with wide, alert eyes. He handed her a cup of hot soup. She sniffed it like a wild animal. Then slowly, she sipped. The child didn't wake. Its breathing was shallow. Daniel checked for fever, was high. He opened his medkit and gave a small injection to lower the fever. The mother jumped forward, ready to attack. "It's medicine," Daniel said quickly. "Not poison. It will help." She stared at him, unsure. Then the child's breathing slowed, steadied, and for the first time, the little one moved its hand. The mother dropped to her knees, her face full of silent relief. She touched the child's face and whispered something in a language Daniel couldn't understand. He sat across the room, giving them space. Minutes passed, then she spoke. Her voice was quiet, broken, and heavily accented. "You, not soldier." Daniel shook his head. "No, just a farmer." She looked confused. "You, not catch me?" "No, I'm not turning you in." "Why?" she asked, truly confused. Daniel shrugged. "You needed help. That's enough." She told him her name was Taylor. Her child was called Luma. She didn't say where she came from, but she said her ship crashed. No food, no power. She walked for 3 days through the forest. Then her voice cracked. "Others saw us. They laugh, throw rocks, spit, say go back where you came from." But no home left. Daniel said nothing. He didn't know what to say. "Hi." He just handed her another blanket. "Teyl." I stared at it. Her lips shook. Then slowly she said, "Why you do this?" He looked at the child, then back at her. "Because your little one reminds me of someone who, my daughter. She died 2 years ago. Fever. No one helped us in time." Taylor's eyes lowered. "Right?" He nodded. "So, maybe I'm just trying to do better this time." Later that night, as the storm still cried outside, Daniel heard soft footsteps. Taylor stood at the door to his room, her arms hugging herself. She spoke, voice trembling. "Tomorrow, we go." Daniel looked up from his bed. "You're safe here," he said. "You don't have to go." She stared at him for a long time. Then, very softly, she said something he didn't expect. "If I die, will you save her?" Daniel sat up straight. "What?" Tala's voice broke. "She is small, weak, not strong. No one wants her. If I die, will you take care?" Daniel stood and walked to her. He didn't touch her, just looked her in the eyes. "I'm not going to let either of you die. Not while you're under my roof." She blinked, like she didn't. Believe him, no one had ever said something like that to her before. She turned and walked back to the couch, silently. But before she lay down, she looked back once and whispered something again. This time in English. "Thank you, human." The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the clouds still hung low, heavy and gray, like they were watching. Daniel made breakfast. He kept it simple: eggs, bread, and some tea. The smell filled the house with warmth. He glanced at the couch, where Tayla and her child slept. Luma was curled up, wrapped in the blanket like a tiny cocoon, breathing softly. But Tayla was already awake. She sat silently near the window, eyes fixed on the horizon like she was waiting for someone to appear, or chasing ghosts in her memory. "You hungry?" Daniel asked gently. She didn't answer at first. Then she nodded once. Daniel placed a plate in front of her and returned to the kitchen, trying not to make her feel watched. But her voice stopped him. "I was property once." Tea turned slowly. Her hands were shaking, even though the room was warm now. She didn't look at him when she spoke. Her eyes stayed locked on the plate, untouched. "My people do not forgive mothers who break rules." Daniel sat down quietly. "What rules?" She swallowed. "No child without permission. No union outside your caste. No choosing your mate." Daniel frowned. "You had to get permission to have a child?" She nodded. "I loved someone. He was a worker. I was born noble caste. We met in secret. When I became with child, he begged me to tell no one." "And you told?" Daniel asked. "No," she whispered. "He did." Daniel's heart sank. "He betrayed you." "Yes," said I forced him. Said child, not his. The judges believed him. I was shamed, stripped of title, given a chain, and a price. She slowly rolled up her sleeve. A faint mark was still visible, thin, almost healed, but clearly the sign of a tracker collar. "They put me on a sale list," she said, "but my value was low because of the baby." She looked toward Luma. Asleep, they said she was useless. Daniel clenched his jaw. "They're wrong." Tayla finally took a bite of food, her hand shaking. Daniel didn't speak again until she finished eating. "Did you escape during a sale?" he asked. Teyla nodded. "Yes. One buyer fought with another. Guards distracted. I broke the lock, ran into a docking bay. Found an old cargo pod. No nav, no power, but engine started. I flew blind. And crashed here," Daniel said softly. "I thought I would die," she admitted. "I was ready, but she was not." She looked at her daughter. She cried. "Even after no food, even when cold, even when I had to carry her through forest, she never stopped. She wanted to live." Daniel smiled sadly. "She's strong, like her mother." Tayla looked at him sharply, as if surprised by the word mother used with respect. Then, for the first time, she smiled, small, broken thing but real. Later, Daniel brought a small backpack filled with old clothes and supplies. "You can stay here, but if you need to run again, take this." Tayla stared at the bag. "You still think I will run?" "No," Daniel replied. "I just know the world. People don't always care who they hurt." She nodded slowly. "Your kind, humans. They are like mine." He chuckled. "That's probably true. Some good," she said. Some monsters. She stared at the sleeping child again. I want her to never wear chains, she whispered. Not metal, not fear, not shame. Never. Daniel looked at her seriously. Then stay here. Give her a life. Taylor turned her head. You let aliens stay? I'd let people stay, he said. Not monsters. You're not a monster. Her hands slowly clenched around her knees, but I was sold like one. You survived like a mother, he said firmly. There's a difference. That night, Taylor sat outside on the porch. The stars were finally visible through the clouds. The air was cold but clean. Daniel stepped out, handing her a warm drink. She took it. You could sell me, you know. I know, Daniel replied. You could. Report me. I won't. Why? He looked at her. Because I think the universe is already cruel enough. I don't want to add to it. She looked away. After a long pause, she asked, if I wasn't. This, she gestured to her silver blue skin. Would I still be welcome? Daniel didn't answer immediately. He looked up at the stars. I buried my wife 4 years ago. Cancer. My daughter 2 years ago. Fever since then. No one has stepped foot in this house except the male drone and a fox once. He turned to her. You're not a stranger anymore. You're someone who needs help. And honestly, I think I need someone to help too. Tala's eyes glistened in the starlight. She didn't cry, but she whispered, then maybe I stay. One more night. Daniel nodded. One night at a time. That's all I ask. The floor creaked softly as Taylor stepped through the hallway. It had been 3 days since Daniel found her. 3 days of safety. 3 nights of real sleep, and still. Her muscles tensed at every sound. Her hands always stayed close to her. Child. Her eyes never stopped watching doors and shadows. Because safety, for her, had always been a lie. But Daniel? He was different. He didn't ask for anything. Didn't touch her. Didn't stare too long. He gave her and Luma a room with a working heater and a clean bed. No locks, no chains. That alone made her heart race with confusion. Luma was doing better. The child had color in her cheeks again, and she even laughed softly while chasing a ball. Daniel gave her the sound surprised Taylor so much she almost cried. Your child's tough. Daniel had said Tyla, simply nodded. Daniel didn't ask questions after that. He just smiled and returned to mending an old wooden chair on the porch. One night, as wind howled outside, Daniel brought extra firewood into the main room. Taylor sat beside the heater, brushing Luma's hair. The child had fallen asleep in her lap. Daniel placed a soft, wool blanket on a chair near her. Thought you could use a second one, he said. She nodded, murmuring thanks in her language. Then, without warning, she asked, why no wife? Daniel stopped. The question came out of nowhere. He smiled faintly, but with pain behind his eyes. Had one? Cancer took her. Taylor looked down. Sorry, he shook his head. Not your fault. She touched Luma's forehead. My mate gave me away. To save his name. Daniel stared. He gave you away. She nodded slowly. 2. The traitors said I was impure, said Luma. Was a mistake. Her voice cracked slightly on that last word. Daniel didn't speak for a while. Then he said, well, she's a mistake. The universe could use more mistakes like her. Taylor didn't smile. But she looked at him longer than she ever had before. That night, Taylor carried Luma to the guest bedroom. The bed was warm, the lights were soft. She tucked her daughter in and stood there watching for several minutes. Then she moved to the door. Something made her pause. She turned. Her hands slowly reached for the blanket. And instead of returning to the floor as usual, she climbed into the bed beside her child. Her first real bed in years. She barely slept. Too many memories clawed in her mind, but still. It was the first night she didn't feel completely hunted. The next day, a problem came to the door. It wasn't warships or soldiers. It was Daniel's neighbor, Mrs. Clyde, a sharp-tongued woman in her 60s who lived 2 miles down the road. She came knocking while Daniel was fixing the barn roof. She didn't wait to be invited in. "I saw someone strange hanging around your house," she said, sniffing. "Blue-skinned, tall, not from around here." Daniel wiped his hands on a cloth. "That's right, she's staying here." Mrs. Clyde narrowed her eyes. "She got papers." "Nope." "You know the rules. Aliens without registration are trespassing." Daniel folded his arms. "She's not trespassing. She's recovering. I'm reporting this. You do what you need to," Daniel said, voice calm. "But remember, I pulled your husband out of the snowstorm last winter. I didn't ask for ID then." Mrs. Clyde's face twisted. She huffed, turned, and stormed off. But Daniel knew that wouldn't be the end of it. That night, he told Taylor about the visit. She grew pale. "You should have lied. Said I was gone." "I don't lie for fear," Daniel replied. She shook her head. "You're too soft." "They will come. They always come." "Then let them," he said. Teyla stood up. Her voice turned sharp. "No. They won't hurt you because of me. You helped me." "You helped her." She was ready to leave. Daniel saw it in her posture. That old habit, run first. Run always. So he did something bold. He gently took her hand, not tightly, not forcefully, just enough so she wouldn't walk away. "You don't have to leave," he said. "You don't have to fight alone anymore." Her lip trembled. "I don't know how to stay," she whispered. "Then learn," Daniel said. "I'll help you." Taylor looked down at their hands. No chains, no collars, only warmth. Later, Luma woke up crying from a nightmare. She called out in a voice that sounded like broken glass. Daniel rushed in. Taylor was already holding her daughter, rocking her back and forth, whispering soft alien words. Daniel knelt beside them. He offered a warm cloth and wiped Luma's forehead. Taylor stared at him with wide eyes. No one had ever knelt beside her before. No one had ever shared the weight. As Luma drifted back to sleep, Taylor reached out slowly and touched Daniel's arm. "Thank you," she said softly, "for giving her a bed, for giving us space to breathe." Daniel smiled. "You gave me something too." "What?" "Purpose." The night started peaceful. The wind outside had calmed, and the stars shimmered above the farmhouse like tiny promises. Inside, the house was quiet. Taylor had just tucked Luma into bed after feeding her warm soup. Daniel was washing dishes, humming a low tune to himself. Taylor stood by the window, her arms folded. She still didn't trust silence. It reminded her of dark ships and metal halls before punishment. But tonight, something felt different. Safer. She turned to look at Luma one last time before going to her own room, and then she froze. Luma's chest wasn't moving. No. No, no. Taylor rushed forward, lifting her child gently. Panic flooding her veins like poison. Luma's face had gone pale again, her lips slightly blue. "Luma!" Daniel heard the scream. He dropped the bowl in the sink and ran into the guest room. Kayla was on the floor, cradling the child, whispering in her native tongue, her voice cracking with each word. Daniel rushed forward, kneeling beside her. "She's not breathing." Taylor cried. She was fine. She was getting better. Daniel didn't wait. He took the child gently but firmly. "Let me. I need space." Taylor didn't want to let go. Every instinct screamed protect. But something in Daniel's voice forced her to trust. He placed Luma on the bed. Checked her pulse, barely there. "She's going into shock," he said. We need help. Real help. Taylor shook her head. You said no one would come. You said I know what I said, he snapped. But I know someone. A doctor. She helps quietly. Daniel grabbed a thick coat and lifted Luma into his arms. Get in the truck. Taylor didn't argue. The old pickup roared down the dirt road, its tires slipping on wet ground. The rain had returned, not heavy, but enough to make the night harder. Taylor sat in the passenger seat, holding Luma close to her chest as Daniel drove like a man on fire. She's so cold, Taylor whispered. Rocking the child, Neil didn't take his eyes off the road. We're almost there. Where? Dr. Keller. She's retired. Used to work for alien relief units. She doesn't ask questions. The truck hit a bump. Luma stirred but didn't wake. Taylor kissed her daughter's forehead, tears falling freely now. Please, she begged. Not to Daniel, not to anyone, just to the universe. Please don't take her. Take me, not her. The farmhouse appeared. Ahead, dim lights glowing behind thick curtains. Daniel didn't knock. Kicked the door twice with his boot and shouted, Keller, it's Daniel. I need help. The door opened. Dr. Keller, a gray-haired woman with tired eyes, stood in her robe. Her gaze dropped to the child, and without a word, she stepped aside. Bring her in. The living room turned into a clinic. She placed Luma on a table and opened a case full of strange-looking tools, half human tech, half alien design. What happened? She asked quickly. Fever broke, but now she's cold, not breathing properly. Keller touched Luma's forehead. She's in cytokine collapse. Her immune system's overloaded. Tyla's voice was barely a whisper. She was getting better. It happens, Keller said softly. Sometimes the body tricks us. She looked at Daniel. Is this child registered? No. Keller didn't flinch. Then let's keep her alive so she has time to be. Minutes turned into hours. Keller worked like a machine. Cool injections, oxygen mask, alien tech glowing under her fingers. Taylor stayed by the table the whole time, her hands clutching Luma's tiny fingers, her lips moving in prayer. Daniel stood by. The door, silent. Keller finally stepped back and exhaled. She'll make it, Taylor gasped. She's strong, Keller added. Whatever you've done, it kept her alive long enough. Taylor dropped to her knees beside the table, pressing her forehead to her daughter's hand. Thank you, she whispered again and again. Keller walked to Daniel. You know this puts you at risk? He nodded. I don't care. She's not just a runaway, Keller said. That woman, she's something more. You can see it in her eyes. No, Daniel said. Back in the truck hours later, Taylor cradled Luma in her lap. The child was sleeping now. Color returned to her cheeks. She will live. She asked again. She live, Daniel answered. Teyla was quiet. Then she spoke, voice low but strong. You gave her your night, your safety, your name to that woman. Daniel glanced at her. I'd give her more. Taylor looked at him. Why? He looked forward again. Because you've already given me something too. What a reason to believe people can still matter. She didn't reply, but her hand reached across the seat, and for the first time, she held his. The morning sun rose slowly, casting soft golden light across Daniel's quiet farmhouse. A gentle breeze rolled through the open window, carrying the scent of dew and warm earth. Taylor sat beside Luma's bed, still holding her daughter's hand. She hadn't slept. Her back ached, eyes burned, but her heart was full of something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Luma's tiny chest rose and fell with steady breaths. Her fever was gone. The color in her cheeks had returned. And just once in the early morning she had even smiled in her sleep. Taylor let out a shaky breath. She wasn't used to peace. Daniel came in holding a tray, 2 mugs of tea, and a small plate of buttered bread. He paused in the doorway, watching the scene for a quiet moment. "You should rest," he said softly. Teyl looked up at him, eyes red but alert. "She's alive because of you." He placed the tray on the side table. "No, she's alive because she's strong. Like her mother." Teyla lowered her gaze, unsure how to accept such words. In her world, strength wasn't something others gave you credit for. It was something used against you, something punished. "Still," she whispered, "you stayed when others would have run." Daniel sat beside her, sipping his tea. "You didn't run either." "I was too tired to run," she said with a sad smile. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the birds waking up outside and the quiet sounds of a breathing child. Then she spoke again. "I want to repay you." Daniel looked confused. "For what?" "For everything," she said. "The food, the roof, the safety. The night you gave your sleep to carry us to that woman." Daniel leaned forward. "You don't owe me anything." "But I do," she said, more firmly now. "In my world, kindness is traded. Debt is law." Danielle said with a smile. "We're not in your world anymore." Later that day, Teyla asked if she could help around the house. Danielle showed her the laundry line, the garden behind the barn, and the water pump. She listened carefully, absorbing every word. By noon, she had picked vegetables, fed the chickens, and fixed a broken piece of fencing. Daniel watched her from the porch. Her movements were graceful, like she had once lived in a place where elegance was required even in pain. But now her sleeves were rolled up, her hair was tied back, and there was dirt on her hands. She looked more alive than ever before. That evening, after dinner, they sat by the fire. Luma was curled up on the couch, fast asleep under a thick blanket. Daniel sat with a book open in his hands, though he wasn't reading. Teyla sat across from him, sipping tea. Then, slowly, she stood up. She walked over to him, nervously, almost like she wasn't sure if she had the right. And then she touched his hand. It wasn't dramatic, not sudden, just a soft brush of fingers. A simple act that meant more than any speech. Daniel looked up, surprised. He saw something in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Something breaking. Something healing. "I haven't touched anyone in 3 years," she whispered, eyes filling with tears. "Not like this. Not because I wanted to." Daniel didn't move. "I was always touched to be owned, controlled, sold, hurt." She looked down, ashamed. "But this time, I choose it." Tears rolled down her cheeks. Daniel gently turned his hand, letting her fingers slide into his palm. He held her hand, firm but gentle. "Then, I'm honored," he said. That night, Teyla didn't return to the guest room. She brought Luma with her and made a bed in the sitting room, close to the fire. Daniel offered his own blanket, and she accepted it. Before she lay down, she turned to him. "I never planned to live this long," she admitted. "After the traders, after the forest, I thought we'd both die." Daniel knelt beside the sleeping child. "Well, maybe now. You can start planning." Teyla stared at the flames for a long time. Then she said something that shook him. "In my world, when someone saves a mother and her child, we offer them something precious." Daniel chuckled nervously. "Teyla, you don't need." She stopped him with a look. "I'm not offering my body. I'm offering something deeper." She placed her hand on her heart. "My trust." Daniel's voice caught in his throat. Teyla had never looked more fierce or more fragile. He nodded slowly. "Then I accept it, and I'll protect it." She smiled, this time with warmth, not because she was afraid, not because she owed him, but because, for once, she was free to feel something other than fear. Days passed like falling leaves, quiet, soft and slow. The farmhouse had changed. Luma now played in the open field without coughing. Her laughter rang like a song Daniel hadn't heard in years. She helped gather eggs, chased butterflies, and drew pictures with sticks in the dirt. Teyla too had changed. She no longer flinched at the sound of footsteps. She walked taller, spoke more, smiled sometimes. She moved through the house like it belonged to her, but always with careful respect. She never assumed. She always asked. Daniel had built a small shed to store extra supplies. Tayla had turned it into a tiny garden with alien herbs. She remembered from her childhood ones she thought she'd never see again. But even as peace settled over them like a warm blanket, something stirred in Tayla's heart. A quiet storm. It came with every stolen glance at Daniel. Every moment he handed her a tool without needing to speak. Every time he laughed with Luma like a father would, it built until she couldn't ignore it. She wanted more. That evening, the sky turned orange and pink as the sun dipped low. Daniel was on the porch, wiping grease from his hands after fixing the truck's engine. Tayla approached slowly, holding something small in her hand. He looked up, smiling. "Everything okay?" She nodded, but didn't smile. "Can we talk?" Daniel's smile faded. He stood straighter. Of course. She stepped closer. Her eyes were serious, but calm. Her other hand rested on her chest. "I have been here many nights. You gave me shelter. You protected my child. You gave her a name when no one else would speak it." Daniel shook his head gently. Tayla, she held up her hand to stop him. "In my culture, when someone does all this, and when a woman sees him not as rescuer, but as companion, she kneels." And she did. Right there, on the wooden porch, dust on her knees. Stars above her, she dropped to one knee and opened her palm. Inside, it was a small, sickly, glowing crystal, something alien, beautiful and warm. It pulsed gently like a heartbeat. "This is the last thing I own from my family," she said. "It was not taken because I hid it under my skin. I almost sold it once, to feed Luma, but I saved it." Daniel stared, speechless. "This is not a demand, not a debt, not a request for pity. This is a vow." She held the crystal out. "If you accept it, I am yours, not as property, but as partner, as wife, as mother beside you." Daniel's breath caught. "I know you are not like my kind. I know your ways are different, but I also know this. You are good. You are strong. And my daughter sleeps peacefully because of your hands." Daniel knelt face to face with her. "Tayla, I never thought I'd have a family again. I thought that part of my life was over, buried with my wife, with my child." His voice cracked. "But you and Luma, you brought it back." He gently took the crystal from her palm and closed his fingers around it. "I accept." That night, the stars above seemed closer. Luma was the only one who didn't seem surprised. She climbed into Daniel's lap and called him Dan. Her best try at dad. He didn't correct her. He kissed her forehead and smiled. Tayla stayed close to his side, one hand resting over his. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. The warmth between them said more than words could. But peace never lasts long when others want to destroy it. The next morning, a message drone arrived, hovering low over the barn and blinking red. Daniel stepped outside and caught it in midair. He pressed the button, and a crackling voice filled the yard. To Daniel Walker, "You are hereby notified that your property is housing undocumented life forms. One adult female, one juvenile. You have 72 hours to turn them in or face full violation charges under Interplanetary Code 49. Daniel's jaw tightened. He looked back at the house. where Taylor stood in the doorway, frozen. Luma peeked from behind her. Not understanding, but Taylor knew exactly what that message meant. The past had found her. Again, Daniel crushed the drone in his hands. Sparks flew. "No one's taking you," he said. "Teyl." I stepped forward. "You don't understand. They have hunters. Trackers. If you resist, then we fight," Daniel said calmly. "We're not alone. I have friends, quiet ones, from the war." She blinked. "You fought in the human Coldari conflict?" He nodded. "I saved people once. I can do it again." Taylor stepped closer. Her fingers touched his chest, just over his heart. "Then let us stand together. Husband." Daniel looked into her eyes, no longer filled with fear, only fire. The message drone was gone, but its threat remained like smoke in the air. Daniel stood at the edge of his field, eyes on the distant road, waiting. He knew someone would come. He just didn't know when. Inside the house, Taylor packed quietly, not to run but to prepare. She tied Luma's coat tighter, placed dried food in a bag, and hid her glowing crystal deep in her shirt. They were not helpless anymore. They were a family now, and families don't break apart without a fight. It was just before sunset when they arrived. 2 black transports. No flags, no warnings. They stopped at the gate and opened wide like the mouths of beasts. 3 armed officers stepped out, human, but their armor marked with the Interplanetary Authority. Cold faces, cold eyes. The one in front spoke. "You're Daniel Walker." Daniel didn't flinch. "I am. We have orders. There's an alien female and her offspring living here. You're harboring them?" Daniel crossed his arms. "This land is mine. My home. You've got no right to take anyone from it without proof." The officer raised a scanner. "Oh, we've tracked the energy signature of a non-registered alien crystal legal. It's here." Daniel smirked. "So you came all this way for a rock?" Behind him, the door creaked open. Taylor stepped out slowly, holding Luma's hand. The officers raised their weapons. "Stop." One of them barked. Daniel stepped in front of them, firm like a stone wall. "Lower your weapons. That's a child. She's undocumented. That means she's a threat." "You wouldn't know a threat," Daniel snapped, "if it bit you in the leg. That girl has done nothing but laugh, learn, and live." Taylor pulled Luma close. Her voice, steady but fierce, rang out. "You want a criminal? Then take me. But let her go." The officer raised a tablet. "Your name is Taylor of the Kalari caste, former noble. Escaped slave ship 3 cycles ago. Your property." "I am not property," she hissed. Daniel's voice boomed. "She is my wife." The soldiers stopped. Even Taylor froze. Daniel stepped closer to them, anger in his eyes. "By human law, by Terran family code, she is my legally bound partner. And Luma is now under my protection as my daughter." The lead officer's jaw twitched. "That wasn't filed. It's filed now." Came a voice from behind the soldiers. Everyone turned. An older woman stepped out of a civilian vehicle. "Dr. Keller." She held up a small tablet with glowing legal documents. Marriage certificate. Emergency child adoption. Signed. Witnessed. Uploaded to the Earth Coldari Alliance database. "You're holding your guns at citizens now." The officers looked shaken. The rules had changed. "If you proceed," Keller continued, "you'll be breaking multiple family protection laws, and I'll personally make sure your careers end here." For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, the officer lowered his weapon. "Fine, you win today, farmer." He turned. The others followed him without a word. They entered their transports and drove off into the dust. When they were gone, silence filled the air. Taylor looked at Daniel's wide, stunned. You filed marriage papers? Daniel nodded. Told you. If I say I'll protect you, I mean it. She stepped closer, voice trembling. You meant it. Like a vow. He smiled, like a husband. Luma squealed and ran to him. Daniel lifted her high into the air. That's right, kiddo. I'm not going anywhere. That night. They didn't sleep in separate rooms. They all slept together. Wrapped in blankets by the fire, the farmhouse warm with peace. Taylor rested her head on Daniel's chest. Listening to the sound of his heart steady, strong, human, she whispered. I thought love was weakness, that it could be stolen, used. Daniel kissed her forehead. Love isn't weakness, Taylor. Love is the only thing that makes us strong enough to survive. She didn't respond, but her hand reached down. It held his. Weeks passed. Daniel and Taylor worked the land together. Luma began learning both Terran and Kalari words. The neighbors stopped gossiping once they saw how kind the alien mother was, how fiercely Daniel defended her. One day, Taylor stood in the field watching her daughter run through flowers. She held Daniel's arm. She was supposed to die nameless, she said softly. I was supposed to die alone. Daniel looked at her, but now Taylor smiled. Now she lives, and I kneel to no one. Daniel chuckled, except that time. You knelt to propose. She elbowed him gently. Don't remind me. They laughed. That night. Taylor looked at the stars, the same stars that once looked down on her as a chained mother now looked down on her as a wife, as a woman who loved, and was finally loved back.